The movie is called Bad Axe. It's a documentary. It's set in Bad Axe, Michigan. Tell us about this. This is obviously your hometown, and this is about your family. So this is deeply personal.
Yes, incredibly personal. I mean, when I first started making this film, it really just started off as a lot of home videos. And growing up, I was always kind of the kid with the camera, just always following my family around. And um and so in a lot of these like really emotional and intimate moments, my family's never really like paying attention to like, oh, there's someone with a camera here. They're just kind of like thinking like this is, there's just David there, the son, the brother. So I think that's why, like, the film lends itself to this, the intimacy and the rawness of it, is because um they're not reacting like as if there's like a filmmaker there. They're just reacting as this, it's just another family member there.
Yeah, that sense of intimacy is definitely there. And in terms of the style that you employ there, a lot of filmmakers, if it were an outsider, they might say, "Hey, why don't you leave the room for a minute?" They're not going to tell that to you.
No, they never, they rarely ever told that to me, because again, like I've been doing this even before the pandemic and everything. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some, times where my dad threatened to kill me if I didn't put the camera down and help like roll sushi and stuff like that. But no, for the most part, I mean, it's just me being present in that room, and I just happen to have a camera.
It is it's a remarkable story. All the things that come together in this story, this small town, the politics, conservative versus liberal. I mean, and then of course the pandemic setting in, all of this coming together all at one time. I don't want to say that this was fortuitous for you as a filmmaker, but I mean, having this kind of story unfold before you is pretty incredible.
No, it really is. I mean, look, like when I first started filming, I say like it started off as home videos, but for me, even before the pandemic, I really just wanted to always share my family's story. If you think about this Mexican American woman and this Cambodian refugee who came to this country with a shirt on his back, I mean, these were two individuals that were able to, move to Bad Axe, Michigan, open up a donut shop, fail at that, try to change it into a restaurant, almost failed at that. But together as a family, we all worked together to, eventually build our American dream together. I mean, that was a story in itself I always wanted to share. So, pre-pandemic, I always thought I would like write a script, or like that would be my way of sharing that story. So in those early days of the pandemic, when I'm having those interviews like with my parents, and you're just hearing like a lot of these sound bites and stuff, I mean, that was me just trying to recapture like this history of the American dream,
Mhm.
um, really just for like my own research, because I just had so much free time on my hand. I was like, wow, like let me get the whole history of how Rachel's came to be. But I think it was like around the time of the George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement when I began to realize like, wow, through all of like these sit down interviews and this whole recapturing of like retelling of the American dream, and then just all these home videos of just life during 2020, I realized that I was like, oh, I'm able to tell my family story in such an interesting way of like, yes, examining the past and how the restaurant came to be what it is today, but then also how do you keep that American dream alive during one of the most uncertain and consequential times in recent history, with a pandemic and a divided nation, or racial reckoning, all these things, right? Like that was sort of the genesis of how this story came together. So and like in some ways it's like my family story has always been the same, but just like 2020 just provided just this um really incredible and interesting backdrop of telling that story.
And of course the experiences your father had especially informed so much of this, because you at first you did do a short film on him, just his experience in Cambodia, which he was there for the killing fields, which is a story all of its own. But I mean, then it evolves into this.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's my dad's stories have always inspired me. I mean, if you think about the 16-year-old kid who, has seen the unthinkable things that you and I could never even imagine, but despite everything he's been through, was able to really make it in this country. And yeah, that comes with a lot of trauma and a lot of baggage, but his story was one that like I just always wanted to share. And so, including that, the way his history reveals itself in the film is just so important to me because, I think my dad is such an interesting character and such an inspiration to me in so many ways. And it's like, it's impossible to talk about, this whole American dream story without examining his past and his history of where he came from in Cambodia.
His strength is certainly inspiring, and but then on top of that, he's also a very complex, sort of stubborn character. And when you put
Absolutely.
that dynamic opposite the rest of your family, that creates a lot of tension.
Well, yeah, one of the themes in the film is like really just you're seeing these two generations come at a head, the way my dad thinks and how he feels versus like how Jacqueline and the rest of us, right? Like that is like one of the strongest tensions in the film. Obviously there's everything else going on in the background with what was going on in the world, but it's like you're seeing how this family is trying to navigate, all of those things that happened in 2020. And so that's why it's like it was important to inform my dad's past, because the reason why he sees the world the way he does is because of what he had to do to make it out of Cambodia and make it in this country. But then like you also see like Jacqueline's side of that too, where at the end of the day, like these are just two individuals that want what's best for their family. They just have different ways of coming about that. And I think in some ways that kind of just illustrates where we are as a country right now too, right? I truly do think that like we as Americans, and by we I mean I think most of us as a country, like we all want what's best for our country. We just have like such different ideas of coming about it, but we need to learn how to cohabitate and how to communicate and have dialogue with one another. And I think you see that happen within our family, which I hope provides like a sense of hope to people by the end of the film.
Absolutely. That's such an interesting thing. This is such a I mean, almost unbelievable coming together of so many issues that are happening today. But truly, when it comes down to your family and your father and your sister, that dynamic and them coming together and them still finding a way to be together as a family isn't it's what I don't want to say it's what needs to happen in the country, but I mean, in terms of how
It
we
is
need to
though.
come
It
together and
is.
understand each other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it does, like we need to start seeing each other as like as humans and as people and putting real faces. I mean, like it's so easy to like and don't get me wrong, I still struggle with this and did this so much, back in 2016 when I had my own frustrations. Like it's so easy to like point fingers at the other side um and say everything that's wrong, right? But it's like it takes so much effort to like, okay, like sit down and have a conversation. And if I hope if people can see like the Civ family can do that, we as a family can do that. I mean, hopefully that's just a step in like being able to look at each other, as your fellow Americans, just being able to do the same thing.
It's incredible for a filmmaker to tell such a personal story, but then to also have it be so representative of modern times. For you, just bringing this all together, when you're watching this and you're assembling the footage, what is that like for you? That has to be incredibly difficult, but also like, this is exciting. I've done something here. I've got something here.
I mean, like for me, it's like it was just such a project motivated by just the love I have for my family. So, I mean, I poured everything I had into the making of this film. I mean, look, like, I mean, 8 months ago, I had $101.99 in my bank account, and I made myself broke making this film, and I would do it all over again, because for me, it's like this is like a piece of like family history that I get to pass down to my kids one day, and they get to pass down to their kid. You know what I mean? It's like I want the future generations in our family to see like this is the root of the Civ family and us. Like you see my dad's story of coming to America, and like this is how it all began. So yeah, I mean, so much love and passion went into the making of this project, and it's, you hear so many filmmakers say that, but it's so true that like the more personal you make something, the more universal it like somehow becomes. And I think, Bad X has, after just seeing how audience have reacted to it as we've been on our festival run, it is the epitome of that in so many ways. And I'm just excuse me, I'm just grateful that this personal story that just, I poured my heart into is resonating with so many audiences across the country. It's incredible.